Hello, everybody. It's Amanda from Manassas City Library. And today we are talking to a very special guest. We're going to be chatting with Jen, the owner of RC Ranch. For those of you who come to a lot of our programs, RC Ranch is a fixture, especially during the summer. And she'll bring us things like goats and llamas and sometimes cows, camels, kangaroos, and then some. So we're going to talk to Jen about her journey and how she made this fabulous zoo. So Jen, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I was really excited to get you in on this little endeavor. So why and how did you start RC? It's a big question, I know.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the why is easy. I have been sort of obsessed with animals since I was little. I know, it's a big question. No, that's an easy one, though. Yeah, totally obsessed with animals since I was a little kid. I actually grew up in Falls Church, so not too far from you guys. Did not have a bunch of crazy animals, but definitely always had pets. I don't think I've ever lived in a house without pets in my entire life. I can't imagine it. So I always knew I wanted to do something with animals. And then I sort of fell into a job at a zoo in high school and loved it. And then just went from there. So the how is basically I fell into the job in high school and was really interested in that. I thought about that school for a while and actually did a summer at a vet, worked at a vet for a summer and decided I preferred the zoo, mainly because the animals at the zoo were always happy to see me because I was the lady that brought them food. And the animals at the vet were not so happy to see me because I was the lady sticking them with needles. You know, it was a totally different thing. That being said, I have the utmost respect for vets. My brother actually did vet school and is an emergency room vet. Very, very cool job. But I decided I really liked the zookeeping. I liked the teaching side of it where we were like sharing animals with people and getting to share that experience and sort of, you know, I know how much happiness those animals bring me. And to be able to share that with people was just really exciting. I worked for a couple of different zoos over the years. Did a summer on the road in California for some friends of ours that had a traveling zoo basically and really enjoyed the traveling part of it. And so when we moved back to Virginia from California and we got our farm, it was sort of a really natural progression to just start doing that for ourselves. So we started doing that in 2000 and have been basically just doing it ever since. It let me stay home with my kids, which was nice, and sort of be able to set my own hours and be a stay-at-home kind of mom. And then as they got older, I was able to do more and more events, and it just kind of turned into full-time. And it's actually now full-time for my whole family. My husband does our camel rides because that was his side of things. He really liked the camels. And so he runs our camel rides and I do the petting zoos and educational programs. So this is it. The farm and then the zoo is basically all we do. And it's really fun.
That does sound really fun. I think it's interesting that you wanted to go into vet school and then thought against it. I actually did the same thing. So it's just a hard job. It's a whole nother side of it, and it's hard. So yes,
it is really hard. It's a lot of work. It's a wonderful, I mean, it's incredibly rewarding. I talked to my brother yesterday and he was like, yeah, I saved a dog's life today, you know?
Like, no big deal.
And then it couldn't breathe and now it's alive and it's running around and it's fine. So really rewarding, but also very, very stressful. So yeah, I wasn't up.
Right. Yes.
Wasn't quite up for that.
All right. So what is a typical day like? And I'm just taking a wild guess that there isn't one. And if there is one, it probably starts early.
Well, I have a confession to make. I am a late night person. I have always been a late night person. And I don't dairy, so I don't have to get up early.
Okay, fair enough. That's good to know.
There are, and in fairness, there are days that start really early. And every single day is different.
Okay.
It depends on if I have babies. Right now, I've got 5 bottle babies that I'm feeding that are sheep and goats, and so they eat every 4 to 5 hours during the day. Now I'm now off of nighttime bottles, so I can stretch them 8 hours overnight, which is great. But I tend to do like the midnight to 8 a.m. stretch as
Sure.
opposed to like the 9. Like, I like to sleep a little in the morning, and then I will admit sometimes I go back to sleep. It just depends. But no, it is every day is different. A lot of it depends on if we have events. So if we're, if I'm going to be taking animals off site, which we haven't done a lot recently, we're just starting to pick up some in-person events. We've done a few like private parties and things like that for just individuals, but we're just starting to do more of those. But if I've got something like that, obviously that's going to change the schedule a little bit. But day to day, I've got a schedule around bottles, and that depends on how old babies are. So, like I said, right now it's like 4 to 5 hours. When they're newborns, it's like every 2 hours. So that changes your schedule too. But yeah, there's sort of a list of things I know I have to do every day.
Right.
And there are certain animals that, maybe want to eat more in the morning, or want to buy some nocturnal animals that really I feed them right before bedtime because they are going to eat at night anyway. They're not going to eat during the day. So yeah, it kind of changes every day. But you've got to hit the high points. You've got to make sure everybody's fed. There are certain animals that get let out during the day, like we have some chickens that are only out during the day because we lock them in at night so they don't get eaten by foxes and things.
Right.
So that's, something we have to do in the morning. So there's certain things that kind of hit certain times that they have to be on schedule. Everything else really, I work around that schedule. So whatever else I have that day, it just gets filed in between the things that I know I have to do.
Sure.
So yeah, it definitely changes. And I know some people are much more organized. I think that might be a me thing too, that I kind of roll with it a lot of times. I'm not super organized when it comes to that kind of thing. So, but the animals are pretty flexible, which is nice.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. So how do you get your animals? Like, I know we've talked before at events about some of them are fosters. How does that, do they just kind of does it just come to you? Like, how do they, it's got this vision of like a herd, like all of these goats just suddenly showing up on your property, like, hi.
Yeah, you're not wrong. No, it does kind of happen like that sometimes. Yeah, we have a lot of different ways we get animals. So some of them are really planned out, where there's certain species, have my list of things that I would really love to work with. Some of them are animals that I've worked with in the past at other zoos that I just really enjoyed. And then, we sort of add them in as we can. So some of them come from other zoos that are, that we actually go out and find them and say, okay, we're looking for this type of animal when they're available, when they need a home.
Okay.
Other ones do just kind of show up. We've had literally stuff dropped off on our doorstep before. We have people call and say, hey, we just got a new rabbit named Chicken, oddly. That was somebody had it as a pet. They'd gotten it during the pandemic and they thought it was supposed to stay really small. And she's like this big. And she just outgrew everything that they had. And they were like, we can't do this. This is too big. So we ended up with her. So some of them are that kind of situation. And then, yeah, some of them were born at our house. We have quite a few that are multiple generations. We've been doing this long enough that we have 3 generations of donkeys. We have several goats that are 3 generations deep. So yeah, it just kind of
I love that, generations of donkeys.
Yeah. We do. Yeah. We have a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter, and they're amazing. They're fantastic donkeys. And then goats as well. We've got ones that are like multiple generations, which is fun for me because I have goats that I'm like, oh, I helped your grandmother be born, his family. It's part of your family.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And then, yeah, fostering, we do. I sort of started out fostering for like friends that have zoos. I love the babies. I don't mind doing the overnight feedings and things like that. And I live at the zoo. So I have the capability of doing that a lot more easily than a facility that doesn't have people living on site. So we sort of fell into that, and then I think people heard, oh, hey, she'll take babies. So we've been doing a little bit more. I have a llama and a kangaroo right now that I'm fostering, and that's it. I just got a call about maybe a zebra. We'll see. I don't know how that's going to go. But yeah, so we've raised a couple of different things for people, and then we basically just get them through that initial baby stage where they're
Right.
needing bottles all the time and they're needing a lot of attention and that kind of thing. And then they'll go back to wherever whatever facility they came from. So, which is hard. It's hard to see them
Sure.
go, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's fun. I love the babies, and to me, it's just giving them the best start so that
Right.
they're
Right.
socialized and they're comfortable with people.
Hmm.
I know from experience that from animals that have come to us, if they are really well socialized as babies, and it's true for people with their pets at home as well. If you really socialize your dog as a puppy, or your cat is around lots and lots of people when they're a kitten, later on in life, if you have a lot of people coming in and out of the house, if you've got to travel, they're just more comfortable. It's just
Right.
easier for them. So for us, if I can raise like our kangaroo that we have right now, we do things that, I play with her feet, and I play with her hands, and I play with her ears, and
Hmm.
I check her pouch, I open her pouch up, put my hand in there, so that when she gets older, if there's any kind of a medical procedure she needs, if there's any, she gets sick and she needs medicine, anything, just general health checks are a lot
Hmm.
easier if they're used to that handling.
Sure.
So we try to kind of socialize them, and what we do, because we travel with our animals normally and we are out in public a lot and whatever, it just gets them really comfortable with a lot of new things. They are used to
Right.
traffic, they're used to being in the car, they're used to loud noises, they're used to kids running around and bouncing, and
Right.
it's not scary because they see that the other animals are okay with it, and they see I'm okay with it, and I'm
Right.
mom, so they're like, oh, this is normal.
Hmm.
And that way later on, again, it just makes it easier for whatever they're going to end up doing. They're just comfortable, they're just
Right.
a little bit easier to handle, a little bit more comfortable around stuff, so it's less
Sure.
stress on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there like a dream animal, like one that you really want to get right now?
Ooh. It's a long list. Some of them are more realistic than others. I've always really wanted to work with around an elephant. I've always really wanted to work around a giraffe. I will probably never have either of those animals. They're incredibly expensive to care for.
Yes.
They need a ton of space and a ton of time.
Right.
Probably never going to happen, but those are like my pie in the sky. If I
Right.
won the lottery tomorrow, I would like
Right.
buy a billion acres and have a giraffe. But no, more realistic, I would love to work with an armadillo. I don't know why, but
Okay.
I've always found them absolutely fascinating. They're just really, really cool animal.
Yeah.
So that one's probably more realistic.
Right.
And I'd love to do more natives.
Okay.
We don't do a lot of native species. There's very, very strict regulation in Virginia as far as having, even though we're licensed as a zoo, and I am licensed to have a porcupine and a kangaroo and whatever, if it's native, I have to have like special permission to do that.
Right.
But I think it would be really fun to have for our educational stuff, just because a lot of people don't know what's out there. They don't
Right.
know about the animals that are literally in their own backyard. So
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
that's a coming up kind of a thing, and I think that's probably a
Awesome.
sooner than later,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's cool. Somehow I was like, she's gonna say elephant when I asked that question. I was like, elephant. It's gotta be an elephant.
They're amazing.
They are.
The zoo I worked at in high school actually did have an elephant, and this dog is coming in. Um, and I got to work with her very minimally. I got to help out with
Hmm.
her actual trainers, and they are incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the intelligence level and the emotion and the cognition. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, again, do not have the time. It would have to be the only thing I had, I think.
Sure.
There's a reason that most zoos have the elephant staff. Like they don't
Right.
do anything
Right.
else. That's all they do, because it's very, very specialized. But yeah, I would love to help somebody who has elephants. Just
Right.
be that extra hand, because yeah, then I could do it without having to just do that.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Is there what would you say that there's, as far as the animals that you've had, is there one that's particularly the most challenging, or one that's easiest,
Ooh.
or
Oh, challenging is a good question. It's individuals more than
sure.
anything. I definitely have, we've had individual goats. That goats are really not that hard to take care of, but that just, have health issues or have
Right.
whatever that makes them harder to care for. Um, as far as a species goes, our kinkajous are kind of a challenge, mainly because they're very one person.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go in and they're totally fine with me and they love me and they snuggle and they're great. Nobody else can go in with them.
Sure.
So that becomes a challenge in terms of if I want to, leave the house at some point, to be able to set it up so that it's safe for them and safe for the people who come feed and all that. So in that way, they're a challenge. But
Right.
yeah, there's sort of different levels of challenge, but it kind of depends. Ease
Mm-hmm.
of care, honestly, again, they all have their own challenges. They're all sort
Sure.
of a little bit different. There's definitely, as far as day-to-day care, the animals that can all live in a group together are much easier to take care of
Sure.
because you feed a field of animals instead of
Right.
having to, go in and feed each individual one. Our smaller animals that are in their own separate spaces that don't like to share space, those are a little bit more time consuming because you have to feed them separately and you have to, you're cleaning all the individual areas as
Right.
opposed to one big pasture that you can just do all at once. So it's,
Right. Fair enough. Now, when you get animals, do you ever when you're taking them to certain events, do you have you ever had one that that you raised and you're like, okay, this is going to happen. And then you take them to, and maybe they're just not ready for the whole
yeah.
socializing part of it. Has that ever been a thing that's happened?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's much more so the animals that we didn't raise,
Right.
because when you raise them in that environment, when they're, I say it all the time, when they're babies, everything is new. They have
Sure.
no idea that being set up next to someone that's putting out fireworks or whatever. We've done events where there are fireworks like 100 yards from us, whatever. They're super
Mm-hmm.
loud. When they're babies, they have no idea that that's weird because
Right.
literally everything they see is new. And so they
Mm-hmm.
just look to their mom. So either, if they're a baby that, like a baby goat and its mom, if the mom was raised around those things, she's not scared. The first
Right.
firework goes off and the baby goes, oh, and it looks at mom and mom's sitting there eating her hay. And they're like, oh, I guess this is okay. If we're hand
Sure.
raising, they look at me. And if I'm
Right.
fine, they're fine. So with the younger ones that have been raised around it, they're totally fine. With the stuff that we get from other places,
Mm-hmm.
especially, a lot of the animals that we have donated are being donated because for whatever reason they didn't work out for those people. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times that means that they weren't terribly socialized, that they weren't messed with a lot, that they weren't. And so for them, it's a much bigger
Right.
challenge. And we have definitely had animals come in that, we took them to an event and they just weren't feeling it. They're like, nope,
Right.
this is too much. This is too many. If we notice it at an event, we'll just put them back in the truck, put them back on the trailer and let them just have
Right.
quiet time. But and we'll try again, but we always tell people when we take stuff in, our animals, this is what they do. And
Yeah.
not everybody loves it. It's just like
Right.
us. Not everybody loves this kind of a job. And so,
Right.
it can be very, very stressful. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
love it, they don't have to do it. And we'll find
Right.
them, they usually will just send them somewhere else. We'll find them
Mm-hmm.
someone who is just a quiet family that, if that's
Right.
what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Or, we've had animals that have gone to other zoos because they love the other animals and they don't mind people walking by, but they don't want people coming close. And so a lot
Okay.
of zoos that just want to display, they just want to. We had
Mm-hmm.
a wallaby come to us, and same kind of thing. We got him, and he was about a year old, and he just hadn't been socialized. And he was very
Right.
sweet, but he was just afraid of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried for a while, and we said, you know what, this is not his thing. This is just,
Sure.
he's not happy. And so we
Yeah.
sent him to a friend's zoo. We said, hey, you guys need another wallaby, and they just have a display. They have a big area, and their wallabies just run around and they do their thing, and nobody touches them.
Right.
And I just heard back from them. This was a couple of years ago, and I just heard recently from them, and they were like, "Oh, he's doing great, and he's actually coming up to keepers now and taking treats from their hands and doing that
Oh.
because he knows them, like he's
Yeah.
comfortable with them." I don't know that
Sure.
he'll ever be that way with strangers, like you just with our situation where people come up to the edge and are feeding and stuff. I don't know if he would ever have gotten there with them, but he's
Yeah.
fine with, like the couple of people that come in. He's good. It's okay. He's happy with the other wallabies. It's fine. But yeah, there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely been, they're all different. And so you just kind
Yeah.
of have to see what they
Yeah.
want to do.
They're like
Gotta be
people
in
in that
their comfort
respect.
zone.
Yeah. And I mean,
Absolutely.
they
Yep.
have bad days or they might not like the interaction. It's just, it's it happens. Some of them, like, and it's the same thing with dogs and cats. Like there are some that are just like all about it, never enough. And then but even like even my dog who wants everybody's to give love to everyone. Sometimes she'll have a day where she's just kind of like she just got out of heat. And so she was just like during that just was not interested in the same amount and affection the same way. Like she was kind of grumpy. So you just it happens, their animals have have a range of moods as well. So do you have any that retire?
Oh, I lost you there for a second.
Oh,
nope, you're back. I don't know.
Awesome.
Everything was frozen for a second.
Okay, good. I can edit that out later.
Hopefully you weren't frozen on that part, so we're good. It might have just been me.
It happens. Have you ever had to do you retire animals, or do they like if they're like after a certain point or a certain number of whether their age or a certain number of events, like you just go, okay, like you can relax.
Yeah, no, we have a few that are retired and a few that are sort of phasing into retirement. I've got a sheep who is 14 years old, which is it's ancient for a sheep. She's an old lady. We've had her since she was maybe a month or two. She was a donation, an orphan lamb that we got somewhere. And she's retired. And honestly, she would go to every zoo that I did and be absolutely perfectly happy to do it. But she's a super old lady and she looks like a super old lady. So she's, like just like us, when we get older, we don't hold up as well. And we start, sometimes getting skinny and whatever, like, they sort of used to hit that age and she's hit that age and she's bony and she, she's in great shape. She had a lamb this year, which shocked me. I was like, okay, great, awesome, there we go. Right, but she looks kind of cruddy, honestly. She just looks old. Yeah. And I know that it's fine, but I don't want other people seeing her and being concerned and that kind of thing. So we do kind of have to, be careful about that because, people are seeing this little snapshot for us of what we do. And we want to make sure that all of the animals that come look good. And even if you put a sign up saying, don't worry, I just look like this because I'm ancient.
I'm just an old lady.
Right. Not everybody is going to read the sign. And, I don't want people going home and being like, oh, she doesn't take care of her animals.
No. Yeah.
Just the way she looks now. She's just an old lady. But so she's retired. She's been retired a couple of years from the petting zoo side of things. She just kind of hangs out and does her own thing.
Oh, there you go.
And I've got a cow who's in the process, and she looks great, but she's getting older. And so if it's a long drive, if we've got to drive a couple hours to get somewhere, she gets a little stiff on the trailer just from the moving around and the bouncing and stuff. And so I'll bring one of our younger cows if we're going to do that. If it's a local thing, if it's, 20 minutes in the trailer, less than an hour, she loves to go. So I'll try to take her to those. So it's kind of, we kind of phase them in and out as they, with what they need. So, but yeah, we do have a few retirees that will live forever here.
That's really cute.
But it is funny though. They most of them want to go. Like they know what happens at these events, and they know they're getting treats, and they know they're getting attention. So I go out there to round up, figure out who I'm taking, and those old ladies that have been doing this forever, they're like, oh, we'll go, we'll go eat carrots for an hour, absolutely, So yeah, sometimes I do try to, every once in a while I'll bring them to something just so they get a little outing. But
yeah, sure. Do you have, I just thought of this, is there like an animal that you've had that you did not expect to like as much as you did? Or is there like, like if there was one that you thought, I don't know about that, and then you got it and you went, no, this is actually nice.
This is awesome. Yeah, and honestly, it's not so much that I was not excited about having them, but there are some that I didn't expect to like as much, or to be as attached to in that way. My tortoises are like, I love them. They're awesome. They're cool animals. I knew they were cool going into it, but I never realized until I lived with one the amount of personality that they have. I mean,
Right.
they are way beyond what and you know, like I said, I knew it kind of. I'd worked with around them at other zoos, so I knew that they
Mm-hmm.
were cool. But then to raise them, like we have one that we've had for, oh my gosh, is he 15? I think he's 15 this year, and we've had him since he was a baby, like a newborn.
Right.
And just watching his personality develop, and he has a lot of personality. You know,
That's so
he will
funny.
follow you and beg for food. And when we take him to zoos, he will turn down, like if you throw, you know, kids will throw carrots on the ground. He will walk over the carrot on the ground to get to somebody that will pick that carrot up off the ground and hand it to him. So yeah, never expected that level of personality in a tortoise. And so
That's
those guys
great.
definitely grew on me, and I love them now. Like
That's so
they're
funny.
really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't I wouldn't think of a tortoise being so like that. Like that's so funny. Like please feed me
Yeah.
from your hand
Oh
directly.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that's
Every time.
great.
He'll clean them up later. Like when everybody leaves and there's nobody to hand
Sure.
him carrots, he'll go back around and he'll pick up the ones that are on the ground. But if there are people there, he wants that interaction. Like he
That's
actually
so
wants you
funny.
to feed him, which is really fun. So yeah, they kind of surprised me in that way, that I didn't expect that level of sort of personality and expression that they have.
Right.
It's really crazy.
That's awesome. So what type of, so you come to our library. I know you guys do camel rides. What type of events do you like? What I feel like you do a lot of different types of events. Can you describe like I don't know. I don't even know
Yeah,
where to begin. Just like because you do
I know.
so many.
So our do a
It's
lot of stuff.
really
Basically, anything I can find an excuse to share my animals, that's what we do.
cool.
But our base, sort of our core thing, like I said, my husband does the camel ride, so that's his thing. So he does the camel rides. We subcontract with the zoo in Vienna, Roar's Safari, to
Okay.
do their camel ride. So he's there in the summertime from usually like middle of spring. He just started a couple of weeks ago, till the end of October, I think is his last. So he's there pretty much all the way through the summer. So that we
Okay.
used to travel with our camel rides as well, but now that we've got that, that's pretty much where he is all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so the camel rides, the petting zoos, which are really variable. We do things like the libraries, we do schools, we do birthday parties, and then we have in the summertime, sort of from July through September, beginning of October, I do a lot of fairs and festivals. So we'll go and we'll
Cool.
set up for like a whole week somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
which is really fun because you get to see a lot of people during that time. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like there's a big concentration of people, which is really fun. And then we started doing our parakeet aviary. So we actually have a walk-in aviary that we built, and that's something that we do mainly at our big events like the fairs, because again, it's a lot to set up. So to
Mm-hmm.
set up for an hour is, we've done it, but it's a lot of work.
Sure.
But we'll set it up when we're there for the week. It's easy. We set it up, and you can literally like walk in and feed the birds, and they land on you and whatever. And that's really fun. We do educational programs. So those are usually with our smaller animals, and that's a lot libraries, schools, things like that. Again, we'll do some birthday parties, something and that sort of thing, especially in the wintertime when people
Mm-hmm.
want to do something with animals for their party, but they don't really want to be outside. We can do stuff with our smaller animals.
Right.
So we do that. And then live nativity scenes. We do a ton of live nativity scenes in
That's so
December.
fun.
So they are, honestly, they're really, really fun. So we go, and we're just the animal side of it. The churches will put on whatever they put on. And we've done everything from where it's just us standing out in front of the church and it's just whatever, to this year we did, well, a lot of drive-throughs because everybody was
Right.
trying to do COVID safe ways of
Sure.
doing their nativity scenes. And I mean, we did one that it was such a production. I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
so impressed. They had entire like Broadway style sets set up throughout
Mm-hmm.
their parking lot where people would drive through, and they had all these different things. So we had animals in different scenes and whatever. And I got to dress up and have my camel and, hang out. And
Nice.
it was fun. But yeah, so those are really fun. Those are interesting. But yeah, we kind of just do whatever we can do with our animals. So now we're doing
Mm-hmm.
Zoom programs. So we call
Yeah.
it our petting Zoom, and we're doing these virtual programs, and they've been actually really fun. I was sort of
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
it's whatever. It's not the same. You're not in person. You
Right.
can't touch the animals. It's not.
Hmm.
But I've gotten literally see people all over the world now. I just did one
Yeah.
last week at 3 in the morning for an Asia Pacific part of a company. So we pre-recorded some of the outside stuff so we could see it, and then I just got to
Hmm.
sit inside with and talk to people literally on the other side of the globe, which was
Yeah.
really cool. It was so
That's kind of
fun.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
like one
yeah,
positive side of this. I feel like that people, that are doing all sorts of these events, like now, like their scope has just expanded so much. So
right,
it's obviously not the same as being able to like see seeing one in person or
yeah,
touching something in person, but you get to, going all the way from one country to another, from a very far away country, or even I would
right.
think there are some animals you might not like, you can see them in person, but you're not going to get that close as you might just
Right.
depending on what the animal is. Like I can't imagine getting right here
Yeah.
to a tortoise. So
Right, right. And it's fun because it's like especially it is with my smaller animals, especially, I can hold them here in front of the camera, like right up close so people get a closer view. Whereas with a school program that's, actually at a school in front of
hmm
300 kids or whatever, they're seeing me at a distance. They're seeing the animals at a distance. We try to schedule time for them to kind of come up and get closer. But
hmm
yeah, I think that's been fun. And honestly, my audience has changed hugely. I'm
hmm
doing the school program still, which I love. But I've done a lot of events for adults. Uh,
cool.
it's been because everybody is so tired of the same thing in their
Yeah.
meetings over and over and over again. And they're trying to do these team building activities. But what do you do? Team building online, like
Right.
it's hard to find stuff that works that way. And so I've done a lot of just farm tours where I just walk people around the farm and I'm like, here
hmm
are my animals and we talk about
Yeah.
them. And but it's a lot more adults than I
Interesting.
ever, really, usually our audience is younger. We do
hmm
some college events actually, which I love in person. We do some petting zoo for
Yeah.
colleges, and those are really fun. A lot of times we'll do it for like finals week,
Yep.
when people are just really stressed and they need a break.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's fun because they're so excited to see the animals. They're every bit as excited as when I go to a preschool, like no
Oh,
question.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
So those
100%.
are really fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, other than those and like nursing homes that we sometimes do, we didn't really see a lot of adults that didn't have kids with them. We most of
Sure.
our stuff was, parents or whatever. So it's been different, but it's really fun.
hmm
It's kind of neat to see. And honestly, I think I like I know they're doing it because this is fun, but it's been really fun to see that have the opportunity to teach an older group of people because a lot of times they aren't watching kids watch animal shows and they learn that
hmm
way. I have a lot more kids in school programs that know about these animals already than I have
Right.
adults in that they may not
Oh,
be that may not
yeah.
be their thing, but
Right.
it's still an opportunity to share that and teach people that maybe wouldn't look for it on their own,
Right.
and kind of get them excited about the animals and get them interested. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been neat.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you only do traveling events. You don't have people on your premise, right?
Yeah, we don't. We've talked
That's
about doing
fair.
tours and like private things and whatever, but I just keep coming back to it's really nice having home be home and not
Yes.
having people show up. We have friends that
Yes.
have started to do that, that have people come out. And the biggest thing I hear from them, and a lot of them that do that then ended up moving off property. They're like, okay, we're going to go find our own home. Because at some point you want to have your
hmm
own family space.
Yes.
And so even when you have groups come through and it's scheduled, it's nice to have that separation and just
Yeah.
have a little bit of, yeah.
I think that's fair. And even like I think even for like the most sociable people or sociable animals, like having a space where they know like, okay, this isn't going to happen here is probably very
Right.
healthy. So
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all travel or virtual type of thing. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
kind of a neat balance, I think, though. I think that's a good way of
It's
going with
nice.
it.
And I think people are finding that working from home. I mean, I think people, right now, because so many people are working from home, one of the biggest challenges that I'm hearing from people is that separation. Like you're
Right.
never not at work.
Yes.
It's so hard to be able to figure out when is family time and when is work time. And, when you have access to your work all the time,
Yes.
it's way harder to balance.
Hmm.
So this kind of, I mean, I'm obviously always at work, but in a different way, like this
Right.
is
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
You
definitely
don't
makes a difference.
necessarily have to be glued to your inbox or looking at a screen,
Right.
or like, I know, yeah, I
Yeah.
know at the beginning of this, I was still doing my librarian degree. And so I was teleworking. So I would be, 8:30 to 8:30 on a computer, and
Yeah.
that separation made me, it was very hard to figure that out. So
It's exhausting. It is.
yes, yes. And like, I'm lucky that I have a job where I'm not on a screen all day. So when you suddenly have
Mhm.
to, you're kind of like, it's a little arresting, and you kind of have to readjust your, how can I do
Right.
this? So yes.
Yeah.
What was my other
Absolutely.
one that I have here? So I know there's a lot, I think, just in general, conversations about the importance of education through animal ambassadors. And I know there's a lot of thoughts out there about the different levels of it. I know I'm personally a very big fan of it, just because I think it's important to teach people of all ages about animals, and kind of respecting them and loving them, but also, and just, knowing that at the end of the day, it's like, it's an animal. They do, yes, they have teeth, like they can, yes, that animal can bite you. It's not just that, but I think, especially starting with kids from the beginning,
Mhm.
learning the boundaries with animals is so important. But there are like the people like, there are the opinions like, oh, it's not right, it's an animal, whatever. But
Right. Yeah.
what is kind of your stance or your philosophy on sort of educating people through animals?
Yeah. So like you said, there's so many different points of view on it, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's ways to do it well, and there's ways to do it badly, like anything you do.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's sort of a whole nother a whole nother ball of wax. But
Yes.
what makes me want to do this, what makes me absolutely love what I do, is that I get to see that effect, like I love my animals. I love being around animals.
Mm-hmm.
I get a huge amount of joy and, stress release and whatever, just from
Yes.
being around my animals. And I know that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also get to see it with other people. I know we were talking before we started really, really talking about when you got to hold my kangaroo and how
Yeah.
much that affects you. And I get to see that with people, that
Mm-hmm.
being around animals, and there are studies, you can read scientific studies, lots and
Yes.
lots and lots of them, about humans in nature and humans around animals and the way they physiologically affect us. I mean, literally
Mm-hmm.
measurably lowering blood pressure, measurably lowering stress hormones, measurably lowering, they have an incredible impact on us. And so
Yes.
for me to be able to see that,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that just keeps me doing what I'm doing. It is so
Yeah.
rewarding to be able to see that effect and be able to, I know how they affect me, but to be able to see it in other people is really amazing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for a lot of people who say, a lot of times when we hear, we get feedback from people and think, oh no, you shouldn't, it's not fair to your animals. It's not fair to the animals to put them through that. And
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, if it was a stressful situation for the animals, I would agree. And
Right.
I, we talked about that a little bit, about, that there are animals that don't like it. So, but if they
Right.
don't like it, you just don't make that animal do that. It doesn't mean that
Right.
they all don't like it. So I get to see the other side of it because I know my animals really well, because most of them have lived with me forever.
Mm-hmm.
That they love it. Like
Yeah.
seek out that attention. And, we set up our petting zoos a little bit, everybody does it a little bit differently, but we set it up when we do a petting zoo program. The animals are inside the fencing and the people are outside. And so they get to choose. If they want to interact with people, they come to the fence. And if they don't want to interact with people, they go to the middle. They know, they get it. But when I watch them, very frequently, even when they're tired and they're not really wanting to eat anymore or whatever, a lot of my animals will go to the edge and they'll sleep, they'll fall asleep up against the fence because they want that interaction. They get something out of that as well. So, for me, like seeing that, it works both ways. Like the people are getting a lot out of it, but the animals are getting a lot out of it too. And I think, we talk about enrichment in zoos. And it's a huge challenge for zoos, especially that are stationary, to provide enrichment because here's this animal that lives in a set space. And every animal in the world lives in a set space. Everybody has their territory, they all have their environment, but we're controlling that. So obviously we have to, as zookeepers, as stewards of these animals, we have to provide them with everything that they need. And one of the things that they need is entertainment, just like us. Right. They need to be entertained in some form or fashion. And so for me, I find that one of the most enriching things I can do for my animals is to let them be around people, to take them new places. It's new smells. It's new grass. Oh my gosh. I take an animal and have grass normally. Right now it's still growing, but middle of the summer, I can take them from a lush green pasture and take them to a library and set them up in the grass at the library. And they eat that grass like they have not eaten in a year. They're so excited because it all tastes different. It's a different, they taste, we don't eat grass, but when you eat fruits and vegetables that are grown in different ways, they taste a little bit different. And these guys know it. Like they are aware that it's a different thing. And so they're excited. Like it's this new exciting taste and these new smells and they want to see what's going on. So as long as they're comfortable in new scenarios, and that again, every individual is different, but they love it. Like they love what they do. So it's really, so I get to have the fun from both sides. I get to see the people having a really good time, but I also get to see my animals just be like, oh, this is so exciting. So yeah, it's fun. It's good.
I know I've witnessed, I think one of your goats like put its feet or it's on the other one's back so it could get to a person so it could get a snack. And that's great. And then you mentioned like how they'll go to the middle if they've had enough. I remember I think one of the first times I saw them at Barcy at the library, your llama sat in the very middle, very majestic with those long lashes, just like, okay, enough now. This is good. This is enough.
Oh yeah.
So funny.
No, and llamas are snobs. I say it all the time. They're way too good for us. Just ask them. But they definitely, they are very, very clear about the level of interaction they're interested in. So, like they will sometimes, and especially in the very beginning of the zoo, they're like, oh, it's people and it's exciting. And if there are snacks, even better, Yeah. And then at a certain point, they're like, I'm done. I don't need you anymore. And then they just go and they do their own thing.
Fair enough. Hey, it's establishing boundaries.
Yes. And by allowing them to do that, I think it makes them a lot more comfortable overall in the zoo, just in general, because they know they can have their boundaries. If they don't want to do something, they're like, I'm not feeling it today. I'm just going to sit here and I'll watch everybody else interact and just do my own thing. It's okay.
So that's really kind of,
that's all right.
Yeah, that's kind of the trick, I guess, then, like just making sure that they want to be there and that they're comfortable with what they're given. And then you've got a successful day.
Right. Yeah. And it is, I mean, I tell people if they, with animals that don't want to be there, nobody's having fun. They're not having fun. They're not interacting with people. It's very obvious they're not having a good time. And then the people aren't having a good time because they're not getting to interact and they're not, so it really only works if everybody's having fun.
Yeah.
And when they are, it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I've got my last question for you is a big question.
Oh, okay.
Ooh. So should you ever if you were to meet like a teenager or even like somebody in college who said, that's really amazing. I would love to start my own zoo. What advice would you give them? Just personally, professionally, just in general, or just don't do it?
It's too much. No, and honestly, I say this to people for whatever they want to do. I mean, literally
Yes.
any job that you think that you're interested in doing, do it. Don't go out and don't go get your medical degree because you think you want to be a doctor if you haven't worked around a doctor's office.
Right.
Like you,
Yeah,
you want to
exactly.
do it first. And that happened with me with vet school. Like I really thought for a while that I wanted to be a vet. And then I worked in a vet's office and I was like, oh no, that's not what I want to do. And thank goodness I did that when I was in high school and not when I was in vet school,
Right.
That's a lot
Right.
of your life that you're spending doing this schooling and then deciding. And I have friends who went and got degrees, advanced degrees in
Mhm.
things and then started their career and went, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not,
Yep.
I'm passionate about this thing, but this isn't the side of it I want to be in.
Right.
So definitely whatever you want to do, try to intern, volunteer, something that gets you in that
Hmm.
environment and try different parts of it. Because there's, like with zookeeping, I ended up doing it for myself and it worked for me to do it for myself. But there are a lot of careers in zoos that
Hmm.
where you're working for somebody else and that might give you a little more job security. So if you're somebody who is a little worried about that side of things that you don't want to have to deal or don't want to deal with the paperwork side of it, there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with
Hmm.
having a zoo. We have to have licensing, we've got to have insurance, we've got to have, like when we travel from state to state, we literally have to get a permit to go into every state we go into. it's
Right.
it's a lot of paperwork and I could probably do without that, um yeah, so if you have you want to if you want to have a job doing something like this but not maybe doing that side of it, to do that,
Hmm.
volunteer, get out there and try it, but try it first. Try it first. It is, like I said, I love my job. I am incredibly lucky to be doing
Hmm.
something that I enjoy, almost every day when I do what I do. I love it. There are definitely days, like with anything
Hmm.
that I'm like, oh, I would really just I'd rather stay in bed today. But,
Hmm.
but there is at least something about almost every day that I love that makes
Yeah.
me happy. And I think, I hope everybody can find a job that they feel that way about. I can't imagine having a job where I was just doing it so that I could go home and do something else. I
Right.
that's you spend so
Right.
much time at work every day that you want to like something about it. You don't, you're
Right.
never going to love everything, but you want to like
No.
something about it. But definitely do it first. Get
Yeah.
out there and try different things, try different aspects of it, and try to figure out what it is about that you love. So for zookeeping, go volunteer at a zoo and try a big zoo, try a small zoo, try a mobile zoo, try all of those things, work in different departments and see what it is that you love. I know a
Hmm.
lot of zookeepers who love the animals and maybe don't love the interaction with people as much. Either they're shy or they don't want to be out there. I like being around people. I like talking to people,
Hmm.
obviously. Um, Not everybody feels that way. Some people
Right.
are more comfortable with the animals. And so if that's where you're at, then, you want to get something that's more that direction. Maybe work at a bigger zoo where they have a staff that's just for the social interaction part of it so that you can do the behind the scenes stuff and not have to be out with people. But yeah, try different things, try them out, figure out what you
Hmm.
love, and then figure out what you have to do to get there. A
Right.
lot of zookeeping degrees require a college degree. I got a
Hmm.
college degree and I probably could have done what I do without it, because I hired myself.
Right.
But if I wanted to get hired at a zoo, most of them would prefer you to have a degree in something, ecology, biology, there are
Hmm.
zookeeping degrees
Hmm.
that you can pursue. But before you go that route, if you're at that, if you're in high school, if you're in college, before you go that route where you really commit to a degree and commit to doing, however many years of that, do it first. go out and do it. It is a lot of work. It is very physical work. It is all seasons that you're outside. When it's 20 below and the wind is blowing and it's icy, the animals still need taken care of. So,
Yep.
if maybe if outside isn't your favorite, but you love animals, maybe try working at somewhere that's an indoor facility. Work in the reptile house. It's warm in there all the time. Like, no reptiles. But yeah, just definitely do it first if you
Right.
can. And if you can find a foot in the door, and a lot of times that means doing it for free,
Mhm.
and volunteering, but it's worth it, because then for sure. Like I said, I was insanely lucky to actually have a paying job in high school at a zoo. That is unheard of anymore. And a lot of that
Right.
has to do with just the fact that it was a long time ago.
Mhm.
But yeah, do the time and
Mhm.
try out some different things and then decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because then you'll be happy. Then you love it.
Yes.
Then already before you put all that work in that you love it. Animal jobs don't pay extremely well. They are usually done by people who really love them.
Yes.
so,
Yeah, you
so,
really, really have to love them a lot. So,
yes.
so that's, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a tough thing when I thought I was going to do the veterinary route myself.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not terribly good at science, and reptiles are, I'm not, I can do lizards and frogs and amphibians, but
Uh-oh.
when a
I
snake
have
comes
you
into the
frozen
picture, that's
again.
when, uh-oh.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, you left for a minute again. I don't know what happened.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that's okay. Again, I know how to edit video. I have a video editor, and I can just make this look like it was flawless. And there'll be these
Totally
nice
fine.
transitions. It'll be wonderful. But yeah, no, I like that you're saying, like, emphasizing the importance of actually doing it before trying to either break into business or working in one or starting that degree, because and whether it's the zoo, whether it's something with animals or anything, like I've met people or libraries even who try to get the degree and then they've never done it before. And, there's a lot to be said for the sort of classical studies of, like having your degree, and you think about things that you maybe didn't think about otherwise. But it's very different when whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing is right in front of you, or in your case, looking back at you. Like you've got some little goat looking at you, and it's just like, okay, I got to take care of you. So I don't know if that was in my biology book, but I got to take care of you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and there is a huge amount of on the job learning. I mean, I learn stuff new every day with my animals.
Mhm.
They teach me stuff all the time because everybody's different and they all have different things they like and don't like. But and we run into different things. I probably know more about veterinary medicine now than I ever thought I would when I decided I wasn't going to vet school, because when you're working with animals, you work with that, you're working with your vets to figure it out. But then, especially with the large animals, you're not necessarily taking your animal to the vet. The vet,
Right.
you're calling the vet and you're saying, okay, this is what's going on. And either they're coming out and looking at the animal and going, okay, this is what you're now going to do for this animal for the next
Mhm.
month or whatever. So we end up doing a lot of our own vet care under supervision, thank goodness. But you learn a lot as you go.
Mhm.
Whether it's stuff you want to learn or not, you're learning it.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of it's on the job. A lot of it's on
Sure.
the job learning.
Yeah.
But yeah. And honestly, I think, I did an animal science degree in college, and I do use it. I do
Mhm.
use the things I learned. But looking back now, having done this for a long time, probably what I should have done is like economics or a business degree, because there is that side of it. So if you're wanting to do
Interesting.
your own business, a lot of the animal side of it you can learn as you go. You can learn from other people. You can learn by volunteering, whatever. The business side of it for me is the hard part. But again, that's because that's not my forte. I've always
Right.
been really into the animals. I've always learned sort of voluntarily about the animals side of it. The business side, it's like pulling teeth for me to learn that
Yeah.
side of it.
It's not as fun. I don't think of it as being quite as fun. I'm sure there are interesting parts to it, but and there's a certain amount of orderliness that you learn from, but
Right.
you'd rather,
Yeah, and there are people who love it. There are people who love that side, who are
Sure.
like really numbers people.
Yeah.
I am not a numbers person. I have so much. I admire numbers people so much because I don't. That's not how I think. My brain doesn't work that way. So yeah, My son wants to be an engineer.
That's awesome.
And I find those things fascinating. Like they're
Right.
really cool.
Right.
My brain does not work that way. Like
No.
no way. I would be a terrible engineer. My stuff would all fall apart instantly. But yeah, but figure out how your brain works and what you like and what makes you excited, and then do that. Like
Yes.
figure out a way to make a living doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many jobs out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things that you can do in so many different ways. And yeah, I think, when you're in school and you're learning about stuff, they can only tell you so many different options,
Right.
and so they kind of hit the high points. But when you work in a company, you kind of see what everybody does, and you see, what interests you, and then you figure out a way to make that into something that will pay you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are a lot of things out there. So many
Yeah.
things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that you're bringing it's experience, it's education. But then there's so many there's so many components to it, and a lot of, and really it's just like making, like, identify it, and hopefully have a plan. If, I like you definitely illustrated that, like, go try this place or try something like that. Don't be afraid to volunteer, because I know sometimes the volunteer experiences you probably see a lot more, and you see the not so glamorous side, and then of course you get the fun stuff, but like you'll get to see the baby animals, but then you've got the not so great.
Right.
So
You see a lot of poop. Like poop is a huge part of my job.
I was gonna say poop. But I mean, it's.
Let's be honest, it's a huge part of my job. People laugh at me because they're like, "Oh, you're out there shoveling poop," and that, yeah, what do you do for a living? I shovel poop. That's what I do for a living. A lot of other stuff, but I would say if I had to figure out the amount of time that I spend doing things, poop it factors big. So if you don't like poop, don't work with animals. Like you gotta be comfortable with.
Yeah, I feel like almost like that's almost like the minimum. Like if you can't handle that, then the next step. I don't know. Like when you get into, like, I guess what I remember referring to as the blood and guts, and that or vomit, or even like you have the hard things like death that you have to deal with. Like there's this many directions of like the difficulty, like that don't well, I guess it depends. I guess if that outweighed it for you, for somebody, like that's just such a personal thing.
Absolutely. And that, again, by being there and by doing it, you figure that out. You figure out if that's going to be too much, because it is, like not very many of my animals are going to outlive me because their lifespan is different than ours.
Right.
And some of them, I have animals that max out at like 5 years. That's just how long they live, no matter what you do and no matter how well you take care of them. That's their lifespan. So you go into it knowing, and people who've had pet rabbits and pet guinea pigs and things like, pet rats, they live like 3 years or 4 years. That's it. That's how much time you have with them. And you just have to kind of go into it knowing that. But it's hard. And it's, it's hard for everybody. It's hard for me. But the benefits of being with them during that time that they are alive is way outweighs the sadness of losing them. And I feel like that about fostering. I was unsure how I would do with fostering, because we do keep our animals typically forever. And but the benefits of getting to be with them for that period of time and knowing, okay, I get them for 8 months, I get them for a year or whatever, that's the time I'm going to be with them. And then I am going to do everything I can during that time to enjoy them, to prepare them to be, happy, good citizens out there in the world. It's kind of like raising kids, eventually they're going to leave home. You enjoy them while they're there. You enjoy it. You do everything you can to make that time successful so that they're ready to do what they're going to do later.
Right.
And so it is, but it is, there's a lot of blood and guts side of it. And there's,
Sure.
That's always going to be a part of it. I had, yeah. And it's tough, you lose stuff and, babies die and that's horrible. And it's sad, when we're just coming out of lambing season and we had a really good lambing season this year. I cannot complain. But there are years that stuff happens. It's just part of life. No matter how prepared you are, no matter how hard you try, there's sometimes you lose them. And it's hard. It is really hard. So yeah, you have to be willing to do that. So, there's definitely, like I keep saying how much I love my job. I absolutely love it. And for me, the benefits, the fun part, the stuff that I love about it way outweighs the hard stuff. But there's a lot of hard stuff too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. The hard stuff is really hard, but I imagine.
Yeah.
But then, you have like those wonderful moments and like all of that other time, like you mentioned, because I think that's exactly how I think with animals as well. It's like, that the part, those hard parts of it are not, they're hard, but and especially when they pass away, it's the worst. It's one of the worst things, but it doesn't, it
Absolutely.
can't. But then like you have everything else that happens that's so much fun and that's so special. And I think like you mentioned, like growing, like having all these animals that are growing up around you and generations of donkeys and and then having people that, that know your animals and like that know you and like all the joy. And it's like, that has to be like, that's so much bigger than, poop.
Yeah. For me it is. And again, it's not for everybody. And I do think that, and again, I go back to that sort of snapshot thing where people who see us at an event, they are getting a snapshot of what we do. They are getting that. And we try to make that as happy and positive as we can, because that's what we do. Like that's my job, is to make that a good experience for people. And I do get a lot of people who come and they're like, oh, you're so lucky. And I am so lucky to do what I do. But, oh, I wish I could just, I hear that a lot. I wish I could just sit and cuddle a kangaroo all day. And I'm like, yeah, me too. I know. I would love that too.
Great.
And I'm glad that that's the part that they're seeing. And I'm like, I like that that's the part they're seeing, because that is a positive thing. And that is the thing that brings people joy and all of those things. But part of me in the back of my mind is like cringing just a little to think that that's what they think this is, that's, and I do worry a little bit that people see that side of it. They see the really fun side of it. They see the part that is really amazing and awesome, but they don't see the other side. And I would hate for people to go into it as a career without first seeing the hard side of it.
Right.
Because you want to know, again, that for you personally, that benefit, those really wonderful moments and all the great things about it outweigh the hard stuff for you. And it's going to be different for everybody. I know some people don't do vomit and some people don't do poop and some people don't do blood and some people don't do needles. You kind of have to do all of those things. That's stuff that you end up having to learn to deal with. And if it's not something you're willing to learn to deal with, then that's probably not the career for you. But not necessarily, don't say, oh, I can't work with animals then. Maybe if you like that interactive side, the part where you go out and you show people the animals and you play with them, get a job in an educational facility, do that side of it where somebody else is doing the other part.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely, there's lots of jobs out there. You just have to, you got to find the one that works,
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. This was so good. Yeah, I can't wait till we have you back here for sure, back at the library.
Yes, you are. You're my very big boy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He is so much. Yeah, he is really big.
Yeah. The males get way bigger. So the males
Sure.
get almost double of the females. The females, they say average like 45 to 85 pounds, and the males average 85 to 150
Mm-hmm.
pounds.
And oh.
Any bigger than that. This male, he's not huge, but yeah, they get really big.
Mm-hmm. Does he still do events? Like is there an age or like a size that you would be like, nope, he can't do this, he's too big?
No, he still does events. Honestly, I do like if I'm going to go to a fair for a week, he'll come. But
Right.
I have to carry him to and from the trailer. Like I have to pick him up and carry him because he doesn't really walk on a leash or anything. I can do it, and he'll let me, but he's big and awkward and heavy.
Yeah.
So I won't usually load him up to go to a zoo for like an hour because it's just such a pain. But if we're going to be there for a week, I'll pick him up and carry him once at the beginning of the week and once at the end of the week, and I'm fine with that. So he'll go and do our bigger events. But if we're going to just do like a small one day, whatever, then I'll bring one of the smaller kangaroos. That's not
that makes
heavy.
sense.
I don't always know when I go somewhere new how far away I'm going to have to park.
Right.
So if I've gone to colleges where they're so funny about driving on the grass that you have to park, like a million miles away and then walk everything there. And so, yeah, if it's something like that where I'm not sure how long it's going to be, how long a walk it's going to be, I definitely don't bring it out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can only carry him, very short distances because he is just too heavy. You are, because you're such a big boy. You're such a big boy. Oh, Roxy. Yep. See, you're getting my coffee too. Now you spilled it. It's all gone. You spilled it. It's gone.
Oh.
It's all gone. And your face is covered in milk. So apparently you got into it before you spilled it. Oh, you're very bad.
Oh.
You're a very bad girl. You're a very bad girl. What are you doing? She's like, no, Mom, I'm a good girl. I swear, look, I'm lovey. I'm a lovey baby.
That is so funny.
I think what you're actually doing is wiping my coffee all over my arm.
She's wiping it off on your arm. That's great.
She's like, I'm going to drink your coffee, spill it all over the ground, get it all over my face, and then just wipe it on you. You got it on my face.
That's
good
so
grief.
Funny.
You guys are nuts. You are. You're a train wreck. What are you doing? Are you bad? Are you very bad? You are. You're very bad. Okay, careful.
Yeah, I don't think she needs coffee. She seems pretty.
No, Rufus needs coffee. She does not. She's my go girl. Because you're a baby. Ow, hey, easy. My leg is in that pants. Here, my leg's in there. Don't bite that. That's too rough. Yeah, she's still at that age where she wants to go like all the time.
Yeah.
And luckily, Chloe will still play. So they'll play together. Chloe gets before he does, but they will play. Rufus, not so much. He's never been a big player though. Like even when he was little, he'd run for a little while. Like 5 minutes, he'd run and play and be excited, and then it was this all the time.
Yeah,
he's a little laid back.
Yeah, there you go.
So you've never been really into that. Yeah. That's
not your sporty
thing.
guy.
Okay. He's really not. Not even a little bit.
That's really funny.
You want to check the coffee cup too? There's nothing in there. Roxy spilled it. It's all gone. Huh.
That's so funny because I've seen there's those pictures of some of these kangaroos that have really intense muscles that are very human. And then he's just like, nope, I'm just going to relax. I don't need that.
Yeah. That's a very male thing. Like the males get those big, they look like bodybuilders. They're crazy.
Yeah.
And he's neutered. So I think that may be part of it, that he doesn't have the hormones to get those big muscles. But and I don't know how much of the personality is because he's neutered and how much of the personality is just him regardless. Yeah. And I have a feeling it even as a baby, he was like that. So I think he would be like that even.
Yeah. I think, he's
just always been that guy.
Just laid back. So funny.
He's just always been that guy. He will fall asleep. He lays completely on his back, like spread eagle on his back. And he'll do that in the zoo. Like it will be at, at a fair or whatever. And he'll fall asleep middle of the zoo. It's chaos. There are kids running around and screaming and playing and whatever. And he's out cold and he'll actually like his tail will flop out of the pen and be like laying. And it's incredible. Like it's crazy strong tail. And it'll be like sticking out in the walkway and people are having to step over him and he, and they're like petting it and touching his tail and like grabbing it and he will sleep through the whole thing. He's like,
whatever.
It's nap time. I don't care.
That's
I'm
great.
good. He's so lazy. I love it.
That's amazing. I kind of love it.
Yeah. I feel him. I feel him on a very personal level.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, I've never related to a kangaroo so much.
Right. Yeah. It's